Hello, hello, my friends. It is Mando, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, and welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things about the galaxy far, far away. I am your host, Jarod the Dark Jedi Bachman Stubbs, and listen, I've been bad about sitting down to record news roundups for TNAP. I can't tell you the last fucking time we did a news roundup on KNR. But we're here because it occurred to me the other day, we are now in that in a year, we will have a new Star Wars movie window for the first time since Rise of Skywalker in 19. And I was like, wow, like we're actually going to be getting news again. So holy cow. But yes, this is the first TNAP of 2025. Very excited. New Year TNAP. Going to get on and popping. I'm not going to waste any time. I am here with my co-host with the co-most, one Spencer, the Mando Simpson. It's been a while since I busted that one out.
Yes, it has. It's been probably at least as long as it's been since the last KNR roundup. Yeah, but yeah, it's been a good while since I was a regular news roundup co-host. So no faults for you there, and breaking that one back out again for the special occasion. But yeah, it's good to be with you. We've got a surprising slate of stories to talk about today, given, like you said, kind of the long time it's been since we've had any movie cycles coming up for promos and teasers and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Like it hit me like TNAP started right after the Rise of Skywalker. The first episode of Knights of the Nerd Republic was like, we've had a month to kind of unpack our feelings about the Rise of Skywalker. Let's talk about it, with some distance, having seen it a couple more times, which I found very useful. I listened back to that episode not too terribly long ago, just out of curiosity. And I was surprised to hear how much I still thought and how much I like vehemently disagree with myself about. Because I have softened on that movie a lot. Again, I think there's a part of me that no matter what, like Star Wars is so special to me that like I'm always gonna like even the stuff I don't love, there is a part of me that is just off the wall excited for. But yeah, like I said, we're getting into that news cycle, and we got some stuff coming down the pipeline that I'm very excited to talk about. But real quick, before we jump into the news, you guys know the drill. Sunday's Bloody Mary has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the galaxy, with their 3-time award-winning spicy Caesar mix, as well as their mild and traditional mixes if the spice isn't for you. You can also get their equally award-winning pickled dilly beans, okra, and asparagus, and garnish that bad boy. If you're trying to get your freak on, this former bartender trusts only one Bloody Mary mix, and that is Sunday's. The only Bloody Mary mix that is able to surpass a from-scratch handmade Bloody Mary. So use the link in the description down below. Use code TNAP, TNAP at checkout, and get 10% off your order and help out your favorite nerds while you do it. Spencer, we're going to jump right into the news here. And before we jump into the movie and TV news side of things, I do want to do a very exciting follow-up to a story we talked about almost a year ago exactly. It is no secret here on this show. I mean, I know everybody does. You, me, Connor, Kaysen, Travis. We all have a lot of strong opinions about how pop culture and nerd culture is talked about. I'm a firm believer that the quality of the conversations being had is not representative of
the quality of the content of
it's not reflective of the quality of the material, nor is it reflective of like the quality of the conversations we could be having.
You see a lot of bad actors that get the most attention and the loudest platforms, and it kind of spoils for the people that are, quote, on the outside looking into the nerd conversation. It does spoil the batch really easily. And there are those of us like TNAP and many of our colleagues,
Bombad, Force Center, Star Wars Explained,
Octo Radio. They're just we're tearing up the scene with some high quality Star Wars discourse, and this is, not to toot our own horn, but this is where the thoughtfulness and the genuine discourse is happening. Like I know Alden and I, not that we disagree on a fundamental level with a lot, but we often have different takes about things, and we often have some alternate interpretations. But I have never not enjoyed a conversation with Alden, even when we come out like disagree. It's just good. It's just good discourse.
Absolutely, and it's healthy, and it makes the fandom conversations better. I was watching Anytime with Ken and Alden earlier today, to date the recording. We're recording on the 24th. And I was very happy to see Ken give himself his flowers on air. Ken Knapsack basically was like, listen, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not paraphrasing. He was basically like, I'm not even gonna lie about it. Like, Force Center is the best Star Wars podcast, and everybody in the live chat went, agreed. Yeah. And it's true, because he and Joe Scrimshaw and Jennifer Landa are always having better, more thoughtful, brilliant conversations. And I wish there were more Force Centers in the world, because it's places like Force Center that, prequel memes be damned, got the ball rolling on the second consideration of the prequels, and the way that they have kind of gotten their fair shake as of late. That, and obviously the kids who grew up on them growing up to talk about them, and much of that thanks to Joseph Scrimshaw. And I think a lot of the rot about why Star Wars conversations, in my opinion, tend to be a shitty cesspool, date back to the reception of the prequels. And it's something that has always frustrated me and upset me. It's the entirety of the Fandom Menace and How We Got Here Part 1 is the kind of bird's eye view as to how we set a lot of really bad standards early on that made it really easy for people to make an entire career out of hating things and hating them in profoundly bad faith. And last year, Clayton Sendell of Scripps News, Clayton Sendell, one of the wonderful contributors of the Return of the Jedi Visual Archive book, which I absolutely love. There's a Phantom Menace one coming out later this year that I am so excited to get my hands on. He got to sit down with Jake Lloyd's mom, and they had a very fascinating and enlightening conversation, one that, clarified a lot of things, things about how, a lot of people like to attribute Jake Lloyd's very public issues to the poor reception of the Phantom Menace, particularly to the poor reception of, young little Anakin. And basically clarified that wasn't really it. Kids fucked with them at school about it. But she, being a good mother, was able to inculcate Jake from a lot of the online vitriol that does not excuse that behavior.
Yeah.
But it makes me very happy that Jake did not see much of that really ugly shit that was happening back in the day. And Clayton was able to begin 2025 with an incredible interview with Jake Lloyd that I wanted to start off with, because I think it's it's something I want to keep in mind moving into 2025 in terms of fandom stuff, in terms of getting ahead looking forward to, a new batch of Star Wars movies. We have Mando and Grogu coming out next year. This broke right before we started recording, like the Rey Skywalker New Jedi Order movie, or new Jedi Order movie. Just tapped a writer. It's a guy who wrote Ocean's 12. We have movies coming back, and I think the stakes are higher at that point. And I want to kind of like recenter again, coming back to, I want to have better conversations, starting with, Jake Lloyd in 2025. Spencer, you just read the article. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I obviously don't follow this kind of stuff quite as closely as you do and some of our other colleagues, but I have noticed the palpable absence of Jake Lloyd in the Star Wars conversation. Like, you think of one-off characters that were cast when they were young. I'm thinking of, what's his name?
Daniel Logan.
Thank you. It was like, I was like, it's a guy with two first names. and we met him. I remember that guy. Yeah. So it's just totally slipped my mind at the moment. But like, this Daniel Logan, like, cast at a similar age for Attack of the Clones, and he stayed on the Star Wars scene. Like, he came back to voice several characters in the Star Wars, the Clone Wars TV show, not just Boba, but like, you can tell which of the clone cadets are voiced by D. Bradley and which ones are voiced by Daniel. Like, you can hear it, and it's cool that they decided to kind of integrate both of those into what would become like the young clones in TCW, and even, well, I guess not Bad Batch, but we have the presence of Daniel Logan to make us wonder, like, well, where's Jake?
Yeah.
And there
especially while Hayden is getting his flowers so heavily too.
Yeah,
like,
he's making his comeback, and Ahmed Best is making it, like, he's getting his flowers with Keller and Beck. Like, so many of these prequel actors that kind of got destroyed by the fandom menace on the internet, and
like the proto fandom menace.
Yeah, like what we talk about academically as the proto fandom menace, but like the online hatred and vitriol, like the how dare you kind of attitude, that is, in my opinion, just so destructive almost always, regardless of the conversation or what the content of it is. We are seeing the Hayden Christensen's and the Ahmed Bests and the Daniel Logans. Like, we're seeing them on the scene and wondering, well, where's Jake? And it is like, being a child actor is difficult, period. But being a child actor and growing up with that, especially in the wake of the feedback that the fandom gave to the prequels, is just like, humanity has to apologize on behalf of itself for those people, like, not actors, those people, those individuals with actual lives. And thank goodness, like, Ahmed Best, Hayden, Daniel, like, all these people, like, they are somehow miraculously not totally turned off to the whole thing. They are somehow miraculously not just willing to be a part of Comic-Cons and things. We've met them, they are willing to participate in future Star Wars projects. It's a miracle, honestly. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But a missing piece in all of this is, like, where is Jake been? And so much of the speculation, just, oh, child actor, bad feedback, whatever, has been directed toward, like, he was basically bullied off the face of the earth and he didn't want to come back. And like you said, props to the people close to him that shielded him from as much of that as they could, because I don't know how old he was when he filmed, but the character's 9.
I would say Clayton says that he was 8 when he was cast in the Phantom Menace.
So Anakin. This is a kid, people. Like,
That's why so many people were afraid going into Skeleton Crew. Like, after how emboldened the Fandom Menace got after the Acolyte and how much they like took credit for Acolyte's cancellation, like it was scary. Like, I was legitimately like really hoping, Disney was going to protect these kids, from this shit. Like, again, I'm never going to forgive, for anybody who ever says I praise everything. Here's a moment where I'm going to get real fucking pissy at Lucasfilm and Disney. They did not do their due diligence at all up to this point. And thankfully, Skeleton Crew, it didn't receive that kind of vitriol. Thankfully, I think part of that, I think, is that the Phantom Menace were aware of how bad the optics would be if they went like full tilt boogie on a show predominantly starring children.
In which case, they've just totally missed the point.
Yeah. But
is it my favorite Star Wars project? No. Did I love it for what it was? Yeah, it was a fun time. Leave it at that.
I think that, I think one of the, obviously Daisy Ridley, Kelly Marie Tran are the ones that immediately come to mind because like that was just so visceral. Watching both of them get absolutely wailed on out of public existence. The fact that Ewan McGregor basically had to go rogue to go to bat for Moses Ingram after Kenobi had just come out, with the first 2 episodes, and people are saying just the most heinous shit about Moses Ingram because they didn't care for Reva. Which, again, whether or not the characters for you is one thing, but again, going back to Phantom Menace and how we got here, there's a lot of if the shoe fits kind of conversations, like, whatever. So yeah, and I think that I'm glad that it looks like, Disney and Lucasfilm are learning, like, you got to keep your stars safe, especially when they're this young. Mm-hmm. And like you said, like, so many props to Lisa and everybody in Jake's immediate orbit from protecting him from that shit,
Yeah. And just a PSA to fandom people out there. We should in no situation be creating a culture where children are wondering whether accepting a potentially career making role could potentially also destroy their lives. That's just unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Yeah. You're 12 and about to be in Star Wars. This should be the best day of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to say anything more than that. It's just unacceptable.
Completely. Yeah. And on that topic, it does make me very happy to hear, like, that Jake is, pardon me, I'm draining. Sinuses are killing me. It makes me very happy to hear how, like, plugged in Jake has been. Like in the interview, they mentioned that Jake hasn't been keeping up with all the shows, but he did watch all of Ahsoka. And he loved it. The article includes a picture of Jake with Lisa holding the Ahsoka Black series, which put a smile on my face.
Just very briefly, I don't think we've mentioned. I think we've done a lot of. This is what Jake has not been doing. I don't know if we've addressed what he's actually been doing.
I'm gonna get to that next. Just in terms of like that. Just in terms of that, like, this should be a net positive, and it makes me happy that he's still able to kind of ride that lightning. This quote, obviously for me, put a smile on my face. From the interview with Clayton, Jake has, for now, stopped making public appearances at fan conventions like he used to, but says that Star Wars is still a happy place for him. He recently watched Ahsoka, and lately has been, quote, intensely playing a few classic Star Wars games, including SWOTOR and The Force Unleashed, which is followed up with the quote from Jake, "I want to play The Force Unleashed too. I just beat the first one." That
he's going to be so disappointed. He's going to be so disappointed. He's going to finish the first one on that high, and then he's going to get halfway through The Force Unleashed 2 and realize, wait a minute, this is it. this isn't halfway through. This is the end of it.
Yeah, he was like, it feels like it's a little early for me to be fighting me. But no, and again, this is stuff that was detailed in the interview with Lisa Lloyd, as Spencer was alluding to. Jake has been, struggling with schizophrenia. It runs on his father's side of the family. He's basically been a part of an outpatient, program that is like that. The progress that he's made to this point is basically that he can kind of come and go as he pleases. It's why we have actually seen since Clayton's interview, like, very wholesome pictures of Jake, kind of like, as tasteful as paparazzo pictures can be, of Jake kind of chilling in like what I can only describe as like Adam Sandler chic, just like kind of kicking it in like a graphic tee and some gym shorts. My favorite being, I think it was another picture of him holding that Black Series, hitting his vape, wearing a Captain America t-shirt. And, and again, he's talking about like, it's been very therapeutic for him to come back to Star Wars as a fan. And that he does know like how much people are rooting for him, how many people are pulling for him. The thing that I thought was very beautiful was him talking about how he wants to get fully caught up on Star Wars for May the 4th. Which again, it just fills my heart with so much joy. The quote here is very funny. Jake's actually getting so much better than he was. It's a big relief for me and the rest of the family. We're all just so thrilled that he's doing as well as he is and that he's working really hard at it. We appreciate it. Jake says that, or Lisa says that she and Jake have been going to the movies a lot lately. She credits his medication for helping him stay focused through a 2-hour film. They also reference that he kind of has like a sub condition that like leads to patients being in denial about their condition and kind of leads to it's not really that bad, kind of like yada, yadaing away crucial medication. Take your meds, they're there for a reason. That's not me being glib. That's, a thing. Jake tells me he hasn't touched any Star Wars movies or shows lately, aside from Ahsoka, but says he intends to get back to that soon. I'm holding out for May the 4th with my mom, he says. Lisa confirms the plan. It will be Star Wars Day, it will be a Star Wars Day as always. But I think this year we're getting t-shirts and just it's so beautiful, and like you were saying, that question of like, Hayden's getting his flowers. He's been in 2 shows. Daniel Logan's getting his flowers. He's been here. Ahmed Best is getting his flowers. They're putting Jar Jar in every damn t-shirt they can manage, and Kelleran Beck is in the Mandalorian and all that stuff. Where's Jake? Jake's taking care of Jake.
Yeah.
And, I remember back about a month or so ago, they started a new kind of like sub show on Force Center called Blank is Why We Love Star Wars, named after Ken's incredible book that I highly recommend everybody read or listen to. It's narrated on Audible by Ken, and it's phenomenal. They did their first episode was with the Bomb Bad Boys, and they were talking about Jar Jar Binks is Why We Love Star Wars, and they were talking about that panel, and I believe it was at the Chicago Star Wars Celebration back in I want to say 2019, where they did a panel. I think it was for the 20th of Phantom Menace, but they brought out when Ahmed Best came out. Not only did the room erupt into applause, it was a standing fucking ovation for Ahmed. And that came on the heels of Ahmed kind of having his tell-all moment where he talked about like the reception to that movie, mostly again, the just venom being spewed at him over Jar Jar. People losing their minds over the silly frogman. That it had him close to the brink of making a very scary decision that would have left us with no Ahmed Best ever again. And it's heartening to have those moments again. Like people refer to it all the time. It's like that moment where Ahmed came out, and it was this moment of genuflection of like, we are so grateful to have this performer here with us, willing to get back in the weeds with us. It's why whenever the the Foundling, that episode of The Mandalorian came out. Was it? Yeah, it was the Foundling. People kept talking about the redemption of Jar Jar Binks, and I hate that phrasing. Jar Jar does not need to be redeemed. Ahmed does not need to be redeemed. We need to be redeemed for treating them like that.
Mm-hmm.
As a collective fandom, even the people who weren't there for it, it has trickled back.
As if Ahmed and others in similar positions had any input whatsoever on how their character was scripted, on how they were directed, on how they're you're absolutely right. And
and again, look me in my eyes and tell me that we get Gollum without Jar Jar. Just saying.
For better or for worse, the prequel trilogy was on the forefront of CG technology at the time, and
that's always been George's thing.
Yep,
cutting edge, always.
Yep.
All of love
to Jake.
All love to Jake. All of that to say, would I love for Jake Lloyd to get his Ahmed Best standing ovation moment? Hell yes. I want him to come to that whenever he is ready for it. If he's ever ready for it, if he ever wants that.
Yeah. But I was thinking that same thing. Like, if he is ever ready for it, I think we'll be ready for him.
Yeah.
But until that time comes, if it ever comes, we will be ready.
But yeah, that just like I said, want to start on that. Moving forward to that, very funny, just hilarious story. This broke over a month ago, but we didn't have a chance to talk about it. And I don't even know if Spencer knows about this. Spencer, have you ever watched The Bear on FX?
Nope.
Are you familiar with it?
Nope.
Okay. You've almost certainly seen the memes. I want you to open up the notes and click on the Rod of the Hutt story.
I did open it up and was immediately confused.
One of Hollywood's handsomest, popular leading men, obviously the Emmy-winning The Bear on FX, The Iron Claw, one of my favorite movies from the last couple of years. Absolutely heart-wrenching movie, but one of just absolutely incredible biopic. Star Jeremy Allen White has been tapped to play Rod of the Hutt in The Mandalorian and Grogu. It's so fucking funny, man. Reading from the Variety article, Jeremy Allen White has joined the Star Wars film The Mandalorian and Grogu as the voice of Jabba the Hutt's son, Rod of the Hutt. Variety has confirmed. The project marks the first major franchise for the actor following his Emmy-winning breakout role in FX series The Bear. Plot details have been hard to come by for The Mandalorian and Grogu, so White's casting as Jabba's son provides the first real glimpse as to what may be in store for the titular bounty hunter and his adorably wee adopted son. So yeah, also related to Mandalorian and Grogu news, the word on the street is that the villain, or one of the primary antagonists of the film, will be none other than also Clone Wars darling glup shitto, Embo. A story I didn't put in the notes so that I could just say it to Spencer.
Okay, so I am always a fan of new characters. That is a common thread of my criticism when it comes to new projects. Give us some new characters. Just because it's like Star Wars is this big tapestry that it all weaves together and it all is connected, doesn't mean that we can't introduce some fun new characters. And most projects use a combination of the two.
Yeah.
But
which tends to be how I like it.
It tends to be how I like it too, but I tend to be like 70% new, 30% old. Especially, don't get me wrong, Ahsoka Tano. among the greatest characters in Star Wars, period. She's gotten enough screen time. Let's get some new people involved. But Embo, I also feel like he's gotten a good bit of screen time. I would love to see somebody else take over. But Embo is one of the cooler characters that was created during the Filoni era. Like even just the behind the scenes stuff that I think is hilarious. Like the Embo language is so interesting sounding. Like it sounds to me like if somebody were to like listen to a movie in Latin and then
that's fun. I like that. I like that a lot.
Like if they were to listen to a movie in Latin and then like this is going to be just super problematic real fast. But like have you ever watched a scene of a movie in like Chinese or something and then thought like, "Oh, I could do that." You know, like I could make sounds that sound like Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, because it's what happens, you know, when you hear a language that like is incredibly foreign to you, that you're like, oh, I like especially because like anybody, their native tongue is what comes naturally to them. The other thing just sounds so like wildly like I don't understand how this is words.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. And even though there's a good bit more Latin familiar to us in America than a lot of the Asian languages, Embo's he sounds to me like somebody who just watched a full movie that was completely in Latin and then decided like I'm going to talk like that now.
I'm going to make Latin noises.
I'm going to make Latin noises. And it's so funny. I watched a behind the scene clip. Dave Filoni's daughter, I think, was taking French class in middle school, and he like flipped open her French book with no French whatsoever. Like not just, oh, I think I know how you might say this, but like just zero frame of reference. Just opened it up and started saying things out of this book, and that's where Embo's language came from. It's like
I never knew that.
It's like French spoken like
by a Yinzer who knows no idea what French is supposed to sound like.
If you're a Yinzer reading French out of a French book, this is how it would sound. And like with the just like, oh, what a cool character.
Right. Whenever they did that whole like like Age of the Bounty Hunters pardon me, marketing push for TCW, I was like, I remember looking at it and going like, man, fuck Cad Bane. This guy's cool as shit. As a kid, I was like, yeah, I like Embo. I don't know a damn thing about Embo, but I like Embo.
I'm so glad that they didn't kill him off in his first ever appearance.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
It's like Filoni. The 5 Timers Club for SNL, but it's characters who were introduced in the Clone Wars and made it to a second or third episode.
He was not supposed to survive the Silim farmer episode. He was not supposed to, but they kept him in.
See, look at you go. This is all stuff I didn't know, and I'm jotting it down because I know Eli is too when he listens to this.
Yeah, I mean, I just fact check me on it, but they came up with his language from like Dave or somebody reading a French book, and when Embo takes a literal tank blast from Hondo, he was not supposed to survive. But at some point in production, they were like, no, this guy's too cool. We have to keep him around.
Yeah,
and
I mean...
Thank you, Dave.
I think Embo is such an interesting choice. Because, again, it's one of those moments where it's like, you know, like the Variety article's like, oh, like, you know, we're getting a peer into, like, what the story might be with the Rada, Jeremy Allen White stuff. And, like, people also like, ooh, Embo, like, this gives us a clue. No, the fuck it doesn't, and that makes me so excited. I have no idea... Like, you know, based on like common themes of like the Mando verse or Grogu saga, as Eli puts it, age, like the big connecting fiber thematically has been this idea and this theme of like community and how and when communities need to step up, how they, you know, rebuild themselves. like stuff like that with like, again, like the diaspora of the Mandalorians, with Boba Fett trying to like find his way in book, with Ahsoka, this whole idea of like this like found family and how far can that go? And like, when do you retreat into yourself? When do you let others kind of help you carry your load? Like that has been the big like thread is community in the Mandoverse. So I kind of am in love with this idea, and this is rampant fucking speculation. I could be so wrong, and this will be a very funny clip when Mando and Grogu comes out to find out that Rada's the villain and Embo works for him. But I love this idea of Rada the Hutt being somebody who is not at odds with Din and Grogu, but is like he's somebody who wants to pay forward like the radical act of mercy that was done onto him at the beginning of the war. Like if Rada is looking at Grogu, who is a survivor of the Jedi Purge, and Din, who is the survivor of all of the things that were done to the Mandalorians, and is able to go, well, Grogu, your people saved me, and I'm Jabba the Hutt's kid.
Mm-hmm.
Be it because of military alliances and hyperspace lanes, whatever. At the end of the day, Ahsoka Tano, somebody who Din and Grogu know very well, laid her life on the line for me.
Yeah.
And cared and saved me and nursed me back to health and brought me to my father. Like I kind of love the idea that like that Rada will be an ally because it is, again, it's all about that sense of community. Like the galaxy is in a very weird, precarious place right now. The New Republic is still very much coming into its own. Again, you got to remember, we're only 7 years out from the fall of the Empire. Ish. And, there's so many moving parts. I kind of love this idea that Rada is sticking his neck out here. And I love this idea of Embo, if he is a primary antagonist, if he is an assassin sent by the real big bad. Again, we know Sigourney Weaver's in this movie. We don't know who she's playing. She could be the big bad. She could be a glup shido we meet along the way. Who knows? Tim Meadows has 3 minutes of screen time in The Mandalorian season 3, and that's crazy. But I love this idea that Embo is kind of like this bounty hunter from like the old age, the age of every man for himself, kind of being the law of the land and being this relic of a time where that was okay. As, like basically the last scion of the Hutt cartel is trying to throw in with somebody friendly to the New Republic in Din and help this Jedi expat in Grogu, that Embo is still holding on to that Cad Bane, Jango Fett, Aurra Sing mentality of, kill or be killed, you eat what you kill. I find that compelling. Could I be wrong? Could this all just be glub shido nonsense? Maybe. But I have more faith in Jon Favreau that I think others give him credit for. And I do, not to correct you, Spencer, but just for the record, this one is a Jon Favreau joint. This is not Dave's movie. Dave's movie is still another thing, because the movie slate as is Mandalorian and Grogu, written and directed by Jon Favreau. He may have had another writer on that project with him. The Sean Levy Star Wars movie, which we'll be talking about later. Rey Skywalker Jedi Order. Dawn of the Jedi with James Mangold. Pardon me. And then Dave's movie. So there's 5. One of them is Dave's. Mando and Grogu is Jon Favreau. So I think it's very interesting for this pick. Obviously, do I think Dave is involved? Yes. I don't think Dave could not be involved in Rada and Embo show up. But I'm very fascinated by this. And this is Star Wars being pulpy and kind of leading into that whimsy. And I love it.
I'm so sorry. I'm doing some some Wikipedia research behind the scenes here, just to make sure that I'm not totally talking out of my neck. And I can confirm. I can confirm Embo was supposed to be killed off at the end of Bounty Hunters, but the production crew thought that he was just way too cool to kill off, and so they just had him getting just wrecked by that cannon, but survived. And his species, Kyuzo, is named after the character Kyuzo in the film Seven Samurai. So there's another fun fact for you.
Profoundly unsurprising. Got some Kurosawa in there.
Yeah, because Star Wars and samurai have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Whatever.
No.
And this, from the Wikipedia page, can confirm Embo's alien language, devised by Dave Filoni, is actually a badly enunciated version of a Smurfs book written in French.
That is so funny.
Love it.
Being Smurfs makes it even better, because you guys saying French book, I was assuming you meant a textbook.
That's what I like when I was
not like a storybook written in French.
I thought it would be like, yeah, it's a Smurf book. So anyway, we got a couple more stories to cover here today.
Yes, we do. Moving on, keeping it in the Mandoverse, we got some very interesting news. A story that I very much was excited by. Rory McCann, famous for Game of Thrones and Hot Fuzz, is going to be stepping in to the boots of Ray Stevenson to portray one Baylan Skoll in Ahsoka Season 2. Spencer, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, and recognizing that the main reason that I was recruited for this episode was for this story, because I'm the only other member of the team that watched Game of Thrones in its entirety. I will say, for the record up front, as I have said off the record many times, that it is such a tragedy that we're having to recast this character. Not only because a respected member of the Hollywood community has passed, but because in rewatching Ahsoka, because like my patterns of watching things happens to generally be I watch them when they come out, and then whenever Galaxy of Heroes produces characters and content from that period, I rewatch it. So like within the last month or so, I rewatched the Ahsoka series, and I didn't just think that Ray Stevens was an adequate portrayal of this character. Was Baylan Skoll, to me personally, the most compelling character in Star Wars? No, but I understood who the character was because of how Ray portrayed him. If you told me on if you told me on paper, here's a former member of the Order who is now a mercenary, I would have had one word for you: boring. Next. Like, uninterested. Thank you, but no thank you. Because of what Ray brought to the character, like, I think, if I may, the one line of dialogue, the way that Ray delivered it, that made me decide, okay, I like this character. There's depth to this character. This is not just a mercenary ex-Jedi. This is somebody with complexity. And this probably won't surprise you, Jared, when Shin asks him if he misses the Order.
Yep.
And he says, he pauses and he thinks about it, and he says, I miss the idea of it. That to me was like, okay, this is not just a surface level ex-Jedi mercenary. This is someone who understands what the Order was intended to represent, someone who understands how it failed in representing it, and somebody who's like, man, if only this would function the way that it was intended to function, I would 100% be able to get behind it. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, because for me, like, like, my faith is very important to me, and I look around me and I see that the church in many ways is just like totally dysfunctional. There are individuals acting out of bad faith. There's like controversy and scandal and just like frankly just horrible things that have happened and do happen in the church. And I have to remind myself, like, these are still broken people. They represent a higher ideal, but they're still imperfect people. And I think a lot of people look around at the political scene with a lot of the divisiveness that's happening right now on both sides, and they're saying, like, I have learned about with the like how the founding fathers had formed our country with correct intentions, and they're just seeing it completely misapplied in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people from different political parties and perspective. And it's like oh, like I miss the idea of what this was supposed to represent and what this was supposed to be about in the first place. And for me, I was like, okay, this is not just a one-dimensional character. This is a representation of someone who is disillusioned with what the reality on the ground is, regardless of the intended purpose or how things were meant to be, whatever. It's just like, no, this is the reality on the ground, and I saw it for what it was. But also for all of us who maybe have, to varying degrees, lost our faith in the organization, lost our faith in the government, or like whatever it is, you fill in the blank for what that is for you. It's like what it was intended to be in the first place was a force for good. It was organized in order to make people's lives better. And it didn't turn out well for the organization, for the government, for the governing body, whatever. However, like, I miss the idea that people with the best of intentions, with pure intentions, came together to make the world a better place. And that idea resonates with, I think, everybody on some level. And that's what made the character real for me. So all that soapboxing to say, like, I miss Ray. Like, I lament the fact that he's having to be recast in the first place. But I don't remember if I ever was on like the season finale recap episode, but
I don't think so.
That would have been how I soapboxed that at the time.
Well, I mean,
feel free to respond.
No, I agree with so much of that. And the one of the things that I find really compelling about that, like you said, the real world so well. And if I could focus on the in-universe, like, again, in the same way that, like, in the new canon, we haven't gotten the same droid twice. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, K2 is distinct from Chopper, is distinct from BD1, is distinct from BD8. Like, they all have their own personality. And what I love with all of the Star Wars, like, villains and antagonists that have come from this new era, they are very philosophically diverse. And Baylan Skoll has the, like, tough road to hoe of being a fallen Jedi who's now a thing, who wants to become more of a thing. And
the precedent there,
that formula is well trodden.
Yeah.
You know,
so you got to find the road not taken.
Yeah, you have to not be
Frost sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to not be Vader, Dooku, Kylo Ren, Dagan Gera, Reva, the Stranger. You have to be not, like, just off the top of my head, including some legacy characters, sure, from like pre-Disney, but like, you have to not be any of those. Plus, however many. Throw in all of the Inquisitorius for all I care.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a lump category.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Barriss.
Maybe Barriss, because she finds her way home, which I think was beautiful. I didn't love Tales of the Empire, but that was beautiful. But what I find so compelling about Baylan Skoll is that, for so many of the fallen Jedi, take your pick, du jour, it is, they want something more than what the Order can provide them, whether or not they're right. That is your Vaders, You know, you have people who are disillusioned in so many other ways that their faith in the light side crumbles. Your Kylo Rens, your Barris's. And then you have somebody like Count Dooku, who is politically disillusioned by not just the Jedi Order, but by the Galactic Republic. And then you have Baylan Skoll, who, beyond the politics, like obviously philosophy and politics are deeply intertwined, but for Dooku, it was always about the Jedi and the Republic are failing the people. And he sells his soul to try to do the right thing, and it ends in him becoming a monster that does not reflect who he was as a Jedi at all. But Baylan having this sense of disillusionment on a philosophical level, you know, like it goes back to like what does he say to Ahsoka in like round 1 on Cetos, where like she draws her lightsabers and he goes something to the effect of like, you know, I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed that of course you think it has to end in violence because that's all the Jedi of our era can do. You know, keepers of the peace who draw their sword the moment they get the chance to. And that is one of the things I think makes him so compelling. And I absolutely love that. You know, it's that anecdote that was told on set, or was told about how Ray Stevenson was on set, where like he would constantly look at Dave Filoni and be like, so like Baylan's the good guy. And Dave Filoni would have to be like, no, Baylan is like actively aiding the space fascists and trying to bring back one of their like most legendary military leaders to help subjugate the galaxy again. And Baylan's like, yeah, but he's not wrong. And I think that's very funny, but like it speaks so much of the truth of Baylan, so much of like that angle that like it is about a philosophical failing of the order, that he, like I think many others, it wasn't until it was too late for him to see the rot at the core of the Jedi Order. And I love it. I love it. And like you said, you know, Ray Stevenson's passing is tragic and it's heartbreaking. But I really do love Rory McCann as the next at bat. I really do. You know, Rory and Ray Stevenson were apparently friends in Ray's life. So that's just another little nugget of, you know, this is probably something that Ray would have appreciated. You know, there's no way to know that, but like, right. You know.
But in the same way that Christopher Lee considered his participation in Star Wars as like his last collab with Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
Like we don't know these people like we think we do, but like
no.
But if
parasocialism is a hell of a drug.
But if Ray and Rory if they would consider themselves friends, then I think of you and me, you know. Like if there was a world where one of us had a role and the other one was tapped in to finish that role, it would be the honor of my earthly existence to see that through for you and to have the opportunity to, in some kind of a way, collaborate with you one last time, like we've done so many times here on the show. And like, this isn't intended as a tearjerker. It's just like, if that's true, oh, excuse me. If that's true,
it's deeply funny.
If that's true for Ray and Rory, then I'm just so deeply happy for.
Yeah, and I love that parallel because I knew that story, but I forgot about it with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. You know, I think it was a really interesting angle they kind of played into. I think in the article here, or whoever broke it, they talk a lot about like. Yeah, it is in this one. Yeah, Stevenson played the hulking former Jedi known as Baylan Skoll. And, you know, teaser, last episode of Versus Series Season 5 is going to be a team battle. It's going to be Anakin and Ahsoka versus Baylan and Shin. The decision Spencer and I made that I'm very excited for. Hopefully we'll be recording that next week. Schedules providing. But, you know, I love them leaning into that. Because Baylan is this really hulking presence. And I love that, like, again, guy, you know, lightsaber duels aren't just lightsaber duels. They represent something. I know that's breaking news to a lot of fucking people. But, like, we've talked about this on the Versus series a lot. What is the one archetype of fighter Ahsoka Tano always has issue with? Power fighters. People who leverage their strength against her tend to be her trouble spot. Vader, Grievous, Anakin, Baylan Skoll. They give her a run for her money. An otherwise incredibly accomplished duelist can never quite crack the nut on the first go around of fighting somebody incredibly bigger than her and incredibly stronger than her. And I love the way that does reflect the philosophical difference there. That there is this big hulking mass of failure that the Jedi Order represents, namely the Master Apprentice lineage she comes from, that Baylan throws in her face before lightsabers are even drawn. And she has to find a way to overcome that. And I love that they're leaning on that. And, Baylan, his obsession with finding whatever lost mysticism on Peridia, be it the Mortis gods or whatever it ends up being, I love this idea of leaning into this idea that Baylan's Skoll is kind of a character study in power, be it physical power, power in the Force, spiritual power, the power of having a moral high ground, whether you're right or wrong, feeling as though you do. Because again, as much as I agree with all of the disillusionment with the Jedi Order, at the end of the day, Baylan Skoll's helping the people who killed the Jedi.
Yeah.
And again, and I know you know that. I know that's not news to you. But I'm actually you. But yeah.
He's like, but Baylan's right? And he's like, yeah. But as you pointed out, he's the one who's actively helping the space fascists return to power. I think for Baylan, though, his world is this big. His philosophical world is this big. He may be an ex-Jedi. He may be somebody who's trying to correct the hubris and the cycles of power. But for him, he's like, as long as I can control my little world and make it better, I'm still a mercenary. And I think that's where he takes just a really wrong turn.
Yeah. And
however, I think Rory can pull that off.
I think he can. I think he's gonna. I think that it's a great pick. Again, if I were to describe Baylan Skoll in one word, it may not be hulking, but it may be enigmatic.
Yes.
And I think Rory does that very well as the Hound in Game of Thrones. And I think that again, I think if Baylan is going to be this study of might makes right and how that philosophy goes wrong horribly every time, I think that this is a great casting choice. I think it's a very compelling direction to take the character, and I think Rory's going to knock it out of the fucking park.
It is. Enigmatic is an excellent word. I would have gone with the much more simple, complex, because with a character like the Hound, you have someone who started out as a major bad guy, the younger brother, but from a notorious family duo of just monstrous killers.
Mm-hmm.
And this is someone who has suffered as a quote unquote bad guy. He was disfigured, disformed, whatever, and is introduced to a protagonist, a quote unquote good character. They form a friendship, and while it's kind of ambiguous whether the Hound is a good guy or a bad guy, there's a lot of character level complexity there that I don't remember what happens to him in the end, but for most of the series, he
dies fighting his brother. He dies fighting his brother. He dies in the Clegane Bowl.
Yeah, there we go. So for most of the series, there's this ambiguity still unresolved, and it ends up he ends up fighting and killing his brother, the Mountain, who's a reanimated bad guy, worse than he was before, a dead guy who's back to life. It's okay, if you
even iota of morality, that he's Gregor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the even iota of morality that Gregor Clegane had is now gone.
Right. And for Baylan, you have this interesting mirroring of that, where you start out as someone who is profoundly and decidedly a preserver of good, someone who fights to preserve peace, preserve good as part of the Jedi Order, who becomes more ambiguous as a result of introduction to someone from the opposite side. So, like it's not, it isn't as clear cut as like a fall from grace, because that trope has been done and overdone. As we've already mentioned, when it comes to Darksiders, there's only so many ways that you can go. But in this case, somebody who starts on the opposite side. If we're talking about characters, it's like the mountain starts or the hound starts over here and Baylan starts over here, and they both kind of work their way toward the middle in different ways. But I think because of Rory's experience with that kind of a polar to neutral character arc, not only does he look like he could passably fill the part, like he in his acting experience can do it. And so I think he's an excellent choice.
Yeah, very, very excited. Obviously, again, heartbreaking to lose Ray Stevenson. It was like the pall that kind of hung over Ahsoka. It was like every time he just whooped ass in a scene, you're like, man, it's like watching the OT now that Carrie's gone. It's like watching Black Panther now that Chadwick's gone. It's there are boots that are like really, really intimidating to fill. But ones I think they're on the right track with.
And just like it's to Rory's credit that, because like you think of Carrie, you think of Chadwick, in their respective universes, they didn't bother to replace either one.
Yeah,
it is to Rory's credit that the production team, because Disney, whether it's Marvel, whether it's Star Wars, whatever, has shown that they are willing to at times just say this character's done. Like this character, like the shoes cannot be filled, and
put
so
them on
we're
the shelf. Yeah,
exactly. So we're going to put them on the shelf and move on with the supporting cast.
I don't like put them on the shelf. Hang the jersey in the rafters is a better way to put it.
That's a better way to put it. And it is to Rory's credit that the production team for Ahsoka was looking around and they were like, this really sucks. Like this situation really sucks. But you know who can do it, and you know who can do it right and who can do it well? Rory. Bring him in.
Yeah. And we also know he knows his way around like sword-based fight choreography.
Yeah.
Not that that's the most important thing, but also like
on a philosophical level, on a personal level, on a practical level.
And
this is a great choice, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And I didn't think that when you first sent me the article, I was like, I mean, okay. But the more I've thought about it, the more that I've explored that possibility, absolutely right choice.
I agree. We got a couple lightning round here for you, just because there's not a whole lot of meat on the bone here. There's rumors floating around related to Ahsoka stuff. Take it with a grain of salt. I find it interesting. Allegedly, Ahsoka season 2 is going to have some more flashbacks to the war, featuring Hayden, which again, rah for Hayden coming back, and allegedly also featuring Ewan McGregor reprising Obi-Wan Kenobi. Interesting stuff. We'll see how it plays out. I don't want to delve any further into that really, because it's in that weird liminal space between like leak and news.
It's just way too early to tell.
Yeah.
It may not be a leak, but it's still way too early to tell.
The other one that I think is incredible. This is one of those like I never would have saw this coming, and I love it. There's an exclusive from Boris Kitt and Pamela McClintock over at Hollywood Reporter. Star Wars shocker: Ryan Gosling in talks to star in Sean Levy's Star Wars movie. Again, not a whole lot of meat on the bone aside from this is a thing. We don't even have like all of the other movies on the slate. We have a general idea Rey Skywalker Jedi Order, Dawn of the Jedi, Mando and Grogu, Dave Filoni, people are loosely calling it Heir to the Empire movie. Sean Levy's is the one that we don't know shit about. Also Taika Waititi's if it ever happens. But like Sean Levy's making a Star Wars movie. What era is it going to be in? What's it about? Force users, yay or nay? We don't know. We do not know. All we know is that Ryan Gosling might be the star of it. And, these are one of those moments, I think, as a Star Wars fan, again, like, I try really hard to not let some of those knee-jerk reactions dominate my thoughts on a story. For example, my first reaction to hearing this news was to go, no, too many people know who Ryan Gosling is. He is too famous for Star Wars. He's too famous to lead a Star Wars movie. Supporting character, maybe. No. And I try to avoid doing that, but like, there's no getting around the fact that Ryan Gosling is one of the best actors working right now. There is no getting around that. Blade Runner, Drive, one of my favorite movies, Only God Forgives. Fucking Barbie, man. Like, Spencer, I know you have no desire to ever see Barbie because, like, the premise of it seems mind-numbing to you. My pitch to you
remains.
The fact remains, like, he had like an iconic performance in that movie. Again, I think you should give it a shot. It is not a toy commercial. It is a movie about existentialism and identity and how sometimes it feels like our lot in life is decided for us.
No, I watched the Billie Eilish music video, which seemed to get the same premise across, but much, much faster. Anyway.
I'm just saying, if you love Mr. Morale, you'll like Barbie. Put that on the Blu-ray. But no, I think it's really interesting. Again, it's not that I'm skeptical about it. It's just one of those like, it's like fucking the alternate timeline where Burt Reynolds played Han Solo.
Yeah.
I get that. Or like, where Streisand played Leia. Where like that's like I can't imagine. Like, granted, we like as kids, we would have by default, in the same way that we mainly see Carrie as Leia and Harrison as either Han or Indy. Like as kids, for us, that would have felt like, oh yes, of course. But it's like it's like Leo playing Anakin. It's like Leo playing Anakin, that alternate timeline. If DiCaprio played Anakin Skywalker, like, I think even as a kid, I'd have been like, oh, that's the guy from fucking Titanic, right? Like, not that I had seen Titanic as a kid, but like I knew about it,
Yeah. But still, like, to be fair though, this might be comparing, apples with cucumbers, but Skeleton Crew was only compelling to me because of Jude Law, and he is a firmly established actor.
That was one of the other things that crossed my mind, because I like Skeleton Crew a lot.
I did too. Like, I was surprised by how much I liked it, but like probably 30% to 40% of how much I liked Skeleton Crew was because not only was the character Jod Nanawood compelling and interesting and complex, but like Jude executed it like a pro. I loved Jude in that show. But he's established,
He's established, yeah. And that was one of the things we were talking about. I'm like, yeah, but like Jod Nanawood was like your favorite character from the show. So like, how can you say that? Like, and again, there's also bias there. Like, I think Ryan Gosling's incredible. He's not one of my favorites, but like, we were doing the show back then, but Spencer can tell all you guys the way I marked the fuck out for like Donald Glover playing Lando. And that's insane. That's insane. Childish Landino, which allegedly is still also happening once he sorts out other creative projects. So like, it's one of those moments where it's like you get that knee jerk, like, Star Wars has always starred relative unknowns, or like B players elevated to A, for these stories. That's what they did with the sequel trilogy, where they took Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and, Oscar, much like Harrison, Harrison had some pretty big roles before then, but like Star Wars was when and same thing for Oscar Isaac. Like he had been in a number of pretty prominent projects, and then boom, Adam Driver, you can say the same thing, and I have his character tattooed on my body. So like, in short, this is interesting, but what the fuck do I know? I think that's how I should end every podcast. But what the fuck do I know?
We're just a couple of nerds putting our thoughts out on the internet.
I'd like to think it's moderately more highbrow than the others, but I also play Alex Jones clips every 30 seconds, so
that's true. From what I said earlier about how we're like borderline the best Star Wars content out there, what I meant was in comparison with the absolute numbskulls that are just trolling the internet, we are
when you choose to compare yourself to Geeks and Gamers, Star Wars Theory, and Nerdrotic, you're like you're the Ben-Hur of Star Wars podcasts.
But doggone it, we're trying to get to Lawrence of Arabia up in here. We are not settling. We're going all the way for Citizen Kane.
Spencer, is this your Star Wars podcast Controlverse? Is that what you're doing?
No, it is not.
That's the same for Force Center, Star Wars Explained, Octo Radio, and Bombad.
No, it is not. I do not want any of those people to come at me because I love y'all and I respect what you do, and I could never measure up.
I'm normally homeboys with the same dudes I'm rhyming with, but anyway.
I already made a talking out of their necks comment earlier. Different track, but same idea.
Same idea. But anyway, I think that's all we got for you guys this week. A little bit of housekeeping real quick before we wrap up. I will be releasing this on Sunday the 26th. This coming Friday, tune in to the All Remaining Systems YouTube channel. I have the link in the description below. Subscribe, turn on notification for that. Obviously, this channel too. Turn on the notifications for that. Ionized Bastards Season 3, the final season of Ionized Bastards, starts on Friday. We already, and I want a round of applause for this, not from Spencer because he hasn't watched Ionized Bastards because he doesn't love me.
Let me just stop you right there for two reasons. One, I love you regardless of Ionized Bastards, and you should know that by now. We've been best friends for how long now? Second of all, after the Christmas party,
basically New Year's Day. It was New Year's Day.
Party. After the New Year's party, I went on the YouTube channel and I started listening to it. So you can just swallow those. You can just suck those words right back into your miserable lungs, mister.
I take it all back.
I love you.
All back. I love you.
I'm sick of being called a grifter. I'm sick.
Now, you see, much like Ryan Johnson, I subverted your expectations. It was still a clip from InfoWars, but it wasn't Alex.
You were like scrolling around. You're like, I got just the thing.
Yeah,
this is the reaction I've been waiting for.
I rarely get to play that Roger Stone clip. But all of that to say, final season starts on Friday. The reason I was going to say round of applause, because we have had such a rocky time scheduling recordings for Ionized Bastards, where we'd be like months apart from episodes. We have the first two, knock on wood, 3 being recorded this week. Episodes of season 3 already in the chamber, already ready to go out. So season 3, final season of Ionized Bastards, starts this Friday. Be there, get in the comments. Episode 2 was hilarious because Michael turned a very funny moment from season 2 into a full bit now for season 3. And you'll know it when you hear it. So go check that out. Pro and Noob over at the Mitch 692 channel. We just finished, or not just finished, but we finished our Neon Genesis Evangelion season. back in December. And as a reward to me for making it through Evangelion and the absolute trial of my ability to function as a human being that was, say that it's one of the best pieces of television I've ever watched in my life, but my God, is it heavy. Mitch decided to reward me with being the pro for the mini season we did, where we covered the Tartakovsky 2D Clone Wars series. That is currently going on right now. First 2 episodes are out. When you're watching this, the day it comes out, the penultimate episode of Tartakovsky will come out, and then the week after that is kind of our like overall recap thoughts episode, and then the week after that will be Princess Mononoke, also on the Mitch 692 channel. Big 10-person epic confrontations match is coming out hopefully in February. That'll feature me, friends of the show, Goose from Triad of the Force, the ratings epic confrontation singles champion Alden Diaz,
friend of the show,
and another friend of the show.
Love you, Alden.
Fuck you, Alden. But go fuck yourself. But yeah, so lots of that coming down the pipeline, and then like I said, hopefully we'll get the final episode of Versus Series Season 5 out. Our first team battle, Baylan and Shin versus Anakin and Ahsoka. Very excited. And then after that, we will get our tournament going, and then I got to come up with combatants for Season 6. I've been doing a lot of Legends reading lately to do what I wanted to do for Season 5. So expect the solo twins from Legends to show up this season. I'm finally tackling Jaina and Jason, namely the Darth Kaitis iteration of Jason. So very excited for all of that. So stay tuned, like, share, subscribe, do all those things. Spencer doesn't have any social media. He's smarter than all of us. You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Dark Jedi 2552, and on Blue Sky with all that other dumb shit attached to it. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on all of those things as well. Thank you to our $10 patrons, Ray Clausen and Paco. And with that, we will see you guys very soon. Thank you also very much for joining us. And may the Force be with you always.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar.
Maybe I'll walk out of here tomorrow and you never see me again. That's really what I want to do.